Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Taina Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy. Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing this morning?
Good. Your flowers look good.
Thank you. I don't know. I think they'll show up because of full screen view. But yes, our garden is getting a little low on supplies at the moment. I think we're in that transitioning kind of period from the early spring stuff to a little later spring stuff. But I managed to pull something together. I was like, oh, I'm going to be on a call with Taina. And last week we talked about floral arranging and I had promised I would do it, which I did. And I sent you a photo.
You did. Yeah, you sent me a photo.
I did, but all those had died. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do another because I do love going to the garden and making a bouquet and it does make me happy. So, and I wanted to I like the accountability.
Oh, yeah. No, they look good. They look good. We have some rose bushes, but they haven't given us any flowers yet this season.
Yeah.
They're still...
My mom's garden is gorgeous. She has beautiful roses and all kinds of stuff blooming. I'm like, I should drive over there and steal some of her.
You should. You definitely should. Definitely
Yeah,
should.
here's the thing about flowers. I get precious about it. Like, oh, I don't want to take them from the yard because then they won't be in the yard and they won't look pretty. But they're going to die soon anyway. And so why wouldn't I bring them in and enjoy them? So I'm trying to move past that.
And the pruning also helps them produce more.
Okay, good. Well, there we go.
So you're all set. There's a tree right outside my window. I'm like facing our driveway. It's a magnolia tree and some of the magnolias have started popping off. So
nice. Yeah, you're north of me because our magnolias are basically done.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're like, I can't remember, you know how they have the chart. I think we're like zone 3 or 4. You're probably
wow. Yeah, I'm
higher.
Yeah. I don't remember what zone I'm in, but we're definitely further north.
5, 6 or something, 5. Anyway, the reason we're rambling is because we didn't discuss before we got on here what we're going to talk about. So you get to hear the part we normally do before we get on, which is, what do you want to talk about today?
Yeah, all the chit chat.
Just chit chat? Is there anything particularly interesting going on? And not interesting, that's a lot of pressure. But what's going on in your mind these days? Or what have you been thinking about?
Yeah, I went back to therapy yesterday after a break.
That's right. You said it was a heavy session.
It was my first session. You know, the first few are usually just like consultations.
Oh, is this a new therapist?
It's a new therapist, yeah. But it was still quite heavy just because I've been feeling really raw lately. And, you know, if you're listening and you haven't been to therapy ever, the first session with a new therapist, they usually ask you, what brings you to therapy now? Like, why now, right? Mm-hmm. And so then you have to go into what that reasoning is. And, you know, for me, I was reading a fanfic, as everyone who's listening now knows. That's
obsessively, shall we say?
What'd you say?
Obsessively, maybe?
Obsessively, yes, definitely. It's my new hyperfixation, my new way to disassociate. But yeah, no. And one of the fanfics, like, just one of the characters had a chronic illness, and so it just like really, really triggered me. And I haven't quite been able to like move on. And so I was like, this is probably a good time because I've been thinking about revisiting therapy because I was taking a break because I had a therapist last fall, but it just wasn't a good fit. So I was like, I'm just going to take a break for a few months. And so,
well, for people who don't know, you have a chronic illness, and that's why it's triggering.
Yeah, that's why it was triggering. Yes.
Can I quickly point out too? I just want to say, because some people, I hear this from people, they go to therapy, it doesn't work, and they don't go back. And I just want to say, one, if somebody's not working for you, you should say, this isn't working for me, and or if you're not empowered to do that, you can ghost them. But I recommend actually advocating for yourself to say, this isn't working for me, because first of all, that therapist may be able to adjust to make it work for you. Right. So you could give them the chance. There could be a reason, right? And they don't know until they know more about you. But also, I just always want people to know, if a therapist doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean all therapists won't and therapy won't. It might just be that relationship is not the right relationship. So keep looking. So
It's like dating. It's like dating, right? You keep looking, if you're into dating, if you keep looking until you find someone that's a good fit, that's the compatibility is there, because different therapists use different modalities. They have different levels of experience, you know? And so the therapist that I was seeing last year, they were great. They were queer. They weren't a person of color. So that's always a little like, that's some negotiating that I have to do. Cause it's like, how much can you like understand in terms of like what I'm going to be sharing during sessions? But no, they were great. They were still under supervision. They were like a newer therapist. And because of the level of trauma that I knew I was bringing to the table, quote unquote, it didn't feel like a really good fit. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to revisit this in a few months. And then after getting triggered about the chronic illness stuff, I was like, okay, this is probably my cue that it's time to get back in there. Because I literally, so yesterday was my first appointment with this new therapist. And then yesterday afternoon, like I was thinking about the fanfic, and I just like broke down in the kitchen while I was trying to make lunch.
Right.
And this was before the therapy appointment.
And it's not the fanfic, it's what it's bringing up for you in your personal life, right? And that's something for everyone to watch for. When there's something that feels like you have like an outsized response to what you intellectually understand it maybe ought to be based on the thing, that's often a good sign that there's something happening that's stirring up some sort of trauma or something, and a good place to have a conversation.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect because I have therapy in a couple hours. So it'll be really fresh and raw for sure. Yeah. But it went well. This new therapist is, she's a Black woman.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, she has experience with, chronic illness and like trauma and things like that.
That's awesome.
And, yeah, so I feel really good.
Because as you know, there are not enough therapists of color, and specifically Black women who are therapists. It's a massive problem. Yeah. Because as you said, like a therapist in theory should be able to help anyone in the same way a coach in theory should be able to help anyone. And we have to bring in the reality of lived experience and just being able to have that basic empathy and understanding of another person's experience that's just impossible when you don't share a particular identity. And you're never going to find somebody who has all of your identities and understands all of your experience. But there are some pretty big things that can be challenging when a person can't understand that lived experience around something as big as your racial identity, or, in your case, the situation specifically dealing with issues around chronic illness or disability, that might be an area where you want to have somebody. So anyway, I wish there were more therapists of color. It's a problem in this world, and then, hopefully beginning to change that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you found somebody.
Yeah. And I was glad that I found her and was able to get an appointment pretty quickly.
That's the other thing. It can be hard to get in. Yeah.
Yeah. Because usually if you are a person of color or a Black person and you're looking for someone who has that lived experience, one, like you said, it's hard to find someone. Two, in general with therapy, it's hard to find someone sometimes who takes insurance. Yeah. Just because insurance
very
is
hard
now.
now.
Yeah.
And because they make so much less when they do it through insurance. Yeah. So that is really becoming a bigger challenge. Another reason our healthcare system is totally fucked up.
Right. And so it's hard to get the care that you need. And then usually when you do find someone who like hits all those things, like there's usually a long wait to get
it can be months and months wait, especially also for child therapists, which are really hard to find now too. My bestie is a child therapist, and like there is no shortage
of people who need of kids,
because kids now that are 5, 6, like they're 7, these are kids that have most of their awareness is in this post-COVID era and in a Trump era, and all, like it is a highly traumatic time to be a child. And so it's really hard to find people, but
we're all traumatized for sure.
Well, isn't that true? We're just living through collective trauma daily.
But and I think also like what you were saying, like just in addition to the lived experience, therapists, they specialize in different things too. So even within something like child therapy, like they might specialize even like more niche down than that. Play therapy, art therapy, like they have, again, there are different methods, right. that therapists can employ. And so finding the right fit can be a little bit tricky. The first time I tried therapy, which was a little over 10 years ago, the first time I sat down with the therapist, it was like the perfect match. And it was such a good experience and just really helped me just like get through a lot of stuff. And so the bar was set really high for me from there. And so since then, whenever I'm like going back to therapy, because I will take breaks intermittently, but whenever I go back to therapy, I'm like, and not that it has to be exactly the same as that first one, but the level of support has to be the same as that first one. And so like with my first therapist, I was in college at the time, and I remember coming in one day and I was just so exhausted from like school and work and like emotional stuff. And she was like, you know what, why don't you just take a nap for 20 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll talk. And I'm like, that's the
awesome.
kind of support that like your therapist should be giving you, right? That kind of flexibility to like meet your need right there in the moment and not just like follow this like script.
That's so rare. You know, this is a bit of a turn, but not entirely. It's related to what you just said. And I maybe have shared this story before, but it just makes me think of it because I went to a session. I had signed up. It was a few years back for the session. I think it's called the Rooted Village or the Global Rooted Village, something like that. If I can find the organization, I'll put it in the show notes, but I don't know if I can. But it was a session with Resmaa Menakem, who is the author of My Grandmother's Hands. I really respect his work. I was really excited to hear him speak because I've never seen him live. And this was like a live session in a Zoom room where you were going to be able to ask questions and sort of be there with him. And I was super excited about it. It was a free event, which was amazing. And there were hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people there. And he showed up and was trying really hard to like answer questions and stuff. And the facilitator started to notice, and I think everybody could tell that he just seemed to be struggling. He seemed either tired or something. And she asked, and he said he was just dealing with a really bad headache and was, feeling a little tired, but he's like, it's okay. Let's just keep going. And after, it didn't take long before this amazing facilitator, a Black woman, said, I'm gonna stop us here because Resmaa, I can tell that you're tired and that you need rest. And I think the thing that I can do here is to say, go take that rest, right? Like that, we need to model what we're talking about because he's there talking about all the things that we talk about in My Grandmother's Hands, which is like this somatic experience and how to treat your body through tension and stress and specifically trauma around race. And so she said, I want you to go sleep, like leave. And he was like feeling bad, but he eventually, like, it didn't take long for him to say, you know what? Thank you. Thank you. That is what I need. And I am going to do that. And thank you. And so he left after just like maybe 5-10 minutes tops of his like hour thing. And I could sense, like, I knew that there was this piece of like, right, I came for this and he's gone. But that was so quickly, that little voice got so replaced in me with, wow. This is what it looks like to model what we're talking about. Because I know I probably wouldn't have done that, right? I don't know that. I hope maybe now I would, but certainly a few years ago when I was there, I don't think I had that understanding, capacity, ability to say, you're my premier person. You're the reason all these people are in this room. We're all excited about it. I'm going to tell you to leave the room. I don't think I could have done that. And I was blown away. And I just thought that is what it looks like to model, to do the work in action at whatever price, right? And then it turned into this most amazing session with everyone there talking about what we had just witnessed and how we experienced it, what it meant for us, how we want to repeat that and emulate that in other spaces. And then it turned into this beautiful session of rest where we were then all encouraged to rest and we were doing some rest activities. It was when I was introduced to Joy Oladukin, who's an amazing singer because someone suggested her song. They said, let's play a couple of songs. It was just the most beautiful experience. And I just think that like getting to witness that, whether it's in therapy or in a session, like when people understand the importance of rest, value that, or whatever the thing is, but where they model it in action, even if it goes against what, we're trained we should, quote unquote, do. Because I think a lot of therapists would not have said rest.
No, they would have been like, no, let's
talk about why are you feeling so tired?
Our hour, right?
And let's figure out why you're feeling so tired instead of just saying, let's just honor that you're tired and let you rest.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the messiness of life, like paying attention to the messiness of life. And so often we want it to, like in theory, we're like, yeah, life is messy, blah, blah, but then we stick to our scripts, our patterns, the way that we think things should be, right? And we're like, no, we don't want to like veer too far from what the expectation was or what we
especially
want it to look like.
Again, when the cost feels too big. Like in the case of therapy, potentially you could have said, it could have also just been, I'm not even going to have this session, then I'm going to sleep, right? And that could have potentially cost her money. And she may have still made that choice. In this case, it was the reputation potential risk of having these people in this room for the specific thing and then not delivering, right? Like there's a risk, a cost. And that's when like that integrity word that I talk to my son all the time about, like it's not just doing it when it's easy. It's doing it when there's a potential cost, when there's a risk. that's when you're showing integrity, right?
Yes.
When you do it, even when you know it might cost you something.
Yeah.
And that's important. I just recorded an episode of Assigned Reading yesterday with Kim Romaine, who you know, and we talked about Barbara J. Love's developing a liberatory consciousness, which I don't know if you've read, but I'm going to bet maybe. No, you haven't. Okay, great. Well, or not great, but I hope you read it because it's amazing. It's really short. It's like 5 pages. And it's talking about, it's like actionable ideas. It's what does it look like to develop this liberatory mindset, let's call it, or consciousness. And there's these 4 steps. First is awareness. So being aware of what's going on, being aware of not just the moment. Like, it's not just noticing that Resma's tired, but it's understanding or being aware of all the context around that. He's a Black man. He's giving, he's teaching, he's in a room with probably a lot of white people having to do this labor. Like, there's all of this context involved in that, right? And once you have the awareness of what's happening, then it goes into analysis, analyzing what are the choices I could make here, right? So then that facilitator is probably thinking, I could continue. And what would that look like? And is that the thing that's the most helpful here? Is that the liberatory action I could take? I could say, let's let him go. And then what are the costs associated with that? Am I ready? Can I do that? Like, analyzing what are the actions that I could take here and which of those are the ones that are actually most aligned with like my values around liberation. Yeah. And then it's action. It's taking the action, right? So that's that piece of, you may know, like, I might have thought I should probably let him go to sleep, right? But then the cost feels so real that I don't take that action. So then it's, can I actually take the action that is the most liberated sort of action here? And then the last piece, the last one is accountability and allyship, which also looks like, how do we do this not always alone? How do we do this together? And she brought that into by saying, now we as a community, as a group in this space, we're going to talk about what just happened. We're going to talk about why that happened and how we can bring that back into ourselves and then spread this amazing action outward, right? Yeah. So like, it was such an example of those 4 steps of this process, and that we have to like, that shift in thinking is what makes us, because you can bring those 4 steps into anything, right? Yeah. At any moment. It's as simple as like the cashier kind of being rude to somebody in front of you who's a person of color, right? So like just even noticing it, understanding the power dynamics. It's a white cashier, it's a Black customer, right? Like, what are the dynamics here at play? What is my role inside of that? Like, here I am now, I also share this power identity, understanding all of that, analyzing what could I do here? What would be the most, is the right thing for me to step in? Is it for me to ignore? Is it for me to talk to the cashier or to talk to the customer? Like, analyzing all those choices, then deciding, okay, now that I know what is the most liberated action, can I take it? Am I ready? Let me do that thing and actually follow through, have the integrity to do it, even if there's a potential cost, even if I might be embarrassed, even if they might yell at me, they may tell me they won't help me, whatever, right? And then also that last piece around that accountability and allyship of like, then it's like, how do I go back and bring this to my community to talk about this more, to bring others in, to maybe also afterwards ask other people, did I do the right thing, right? Bringing in support. So anyway, I just think it's such a great reminder of like, if you are thinking about these things and then like, okay, but how do I actually do it? Just remember those 4 steps, and you can use that anytime.
Yeah. So awareness, analysis, action, and accountability.
Or allyship, but she uses both accountability and allyship. Okay. Because that last piece is just really around like community.
Yeah.
Not just doing it alone. Because she also talks about like, part of that is also then once you know better, educating, helping others, because helping them get to awareness, it's almost like the circle, even it's not like linear, it's like the circle. Because now when you've got to that place, then you can have some responsibility in helping to educate others so that they begin to develop that awareness, right? So it goes kind of around.
Yeah. I like that because it's easy to remember. And I think a lot of times we are looking for formulas, right? Yeah. We're looking for like a thing that will tell us if we do 1, 2, and 3, then we will get X, right? But that method, it doesn't guarantee a specific outcome. It's just a structure, right? That you can adapt as needed, right? So in one circumstance, the only thing to do might be to be aware and analyze. There might not be an action to take, right?
Or it may not be your action. There you go.
Right. Because of safety or just because of, whatever reason, right? But in another circumstance, there might be action to take, right?
Exactly.
And so
that's why I like it too.
Yeah. And if there's no action to take, you can still do the accountability and allyship piece.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, it's not linear. It's a circular thing. These are like entry points into being like a more equitable intersection, or leading a more equitable and intersectional kind of life, or having that intersectional lens as you go about your day.
Yeah. It felt appropriate with what we're talking about here, because it's sort of that, like, how do you make those difficult choices?
Yeah.
But also I like the part of, you're right, sometimes the action, even after you've analyzed the actions, the action you may take may not be the liberated one for whatever reason, right? And then it is maybe then the accountability pieces later, doing some accountability within yourself about what happened, what kept you from taking that action, what might you be able to change in the future so that that comes up again, you would feel more resourced or safe or ready to make that action. So yeah, anyway, I really love it.
Yeah, talking about action, like the one thing that is coming up for me right now is like, even not taking an action is still a choice. Like, that's still an action, right? And I think sometimes we feel like we don't have a choice in things. But if you get through the awareness and the analysis, and then you choose not to do something, like, that's still an action that you're taking. And you're also exercising your ability to choose for yourself. And that's empowering. And that's a really powerful place to be, as opposed to coming from a place where you're like overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, and then you just don't do anything because you feel stuck. I know you probably talked about this in the Assigned Reading podcast, so I don't.
Well, it's not coming out till July 1st, that episode, so people can wait a while for that one. But I'm giving you a sneak peek. But I agree. Like, I think that's something I always talk about with folks too, because there's such like this fear of rejection. This is a little different maybe, but the same idea of where people are afraid to ask for something or to do something out of this fear of rejection or failure or whatever. And it's important, I think, to reframe that, to remember the not doing the thing is also a choice that has a consequence, right? In some ways, you're still delivering the same result by choosing not to take the risk. You're choosing not to have the potential reward, right? And you're ending up in a similar place, but sometimes even a place that feels worse because you didn't even try, right? So like, I think when we can start to analyze what we're doing in anything, this isn't just around liberation either. It's just like in any part of our life, when I choose to say, I think I'm just going to watch this other show because I don't feel like, going outside or whatever, that, and it may feel like you don't have a choice, but that still is a choice. That's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, the not doing something is still a choice. And it still has a consequence. And it doesn't mean that you don't do it. But I think it's the awareness around the fact that I am still making a choice here, and I do have power in any moment, whether the choice I'm making feels like it's, an empowered choice or not. It's still, I have this power to make a different decision, or the decision I'm making also has consequences. Like, every no is also a yes, and every yes is also a no. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to other potential things, right? And when you say no to something, you may be saying yes to all this, something else that could come your way.
Yeah. Oh, did not think this conversation was going to go this way, but this is good.
No, I didn't either, because I was just going to say, let's talk about stuff that we love. But you know what? I want to talk about something else, though, that you mentioned, because you said your hyperfixation with your fanfic. And I find it interesting because just today in Slack, in a message we were talking about, I had said I spent 2 hours working on a new game thing on my website. You can go to beckymollenkamp.com/game. Can you tell the difference between like corporate speak and sort of just real talk or liberated talk? And it's this fun little game where you pull the little things into the different bins and you get a score at the end. And I did it with AI, right? With ChatGPT. We walked through it, helped me develop all the HTML code, and it took 2 hours. Which was funny because you said 2 hours, and I was like, "Is that not a long time, or is it a long time?" Because in my mind, it wasn't that long for what it created. I'm blown away by what I can do. I would have literally never been able to do it, or if I had to learn HTML and learn everything, it would take me years, and it took me 2 hours, right? So I thought it was nothing, and you were like, "Oh my god, I can't focus on anything for that long." But you can read fanfic for 12 hours in a sitting, or stay up all night watching Queer Love or whatever that show was. Like, so I just think that's interesting, as you're saying, like, I can't do anything for 2 hours. I think that's my current fixation, my hyper obsession. Cause I was going to tell you it's my ADHD, cause I can get really hyper focused on something when I'm like into it. And that's how I'm feeling these days with like doing this, like experimenting with AI tools and web design and stuff. Like, I get so into it that I don't want to get up and go to the bathroom. I don't want to do anything until it's finished, cause I'm so excited about it. So I feel like you acted like, I felt like you were kind of like, I can't believe that. But then I'm like, mirror? Because it may not be the same thing, but I mean, like, you're doing it in a different way, but your fanfic is like hours.
Yeah, it is hours. I like on Saturday, I spent the whole day reading. And I mean, I did things in between, but I think for things like that, like it's an escape for me.
Mhm.
Again, it's dissociating. Like I'm dissociating. I'm hard.
That's how I am with the AI though. Like when I'm
Yeah.
doing that, I am so in that the
Yeah.
world has just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, I didn't say this in the Slack, but like when I first saw your message about spending 2 hours, because Kim had also posted something
Yeah.
about corporate speak, and it was like a list of like corporate lingo translated into like Gen Z language. And so when I saw your post, I thought it was also a list.
Oh.
I didn't realize it was like a whole website.
No, it's like a whole interactive game
A whole
thing
page on your website. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God. Like, and I know how you get sometimes with like a new idea. You're just like a dog with a bone. Like you just like cannot let go of it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, you literally got off the call where you couldn't stop yawning.
You're right.
And I was so tired.
Yes, you're right.
And then you said you spent 2 hours in that thing. And I'm like, why? Like,
and not yawning at all. Like, because as soon as I was doing that, that is interesting because I was saying on the call, I'm not bored. I'm just tired.
Yeah.
And I wasn't bored, but there's something that just switched because you're right. I get I guess it's the ADHD, even though I'm not diagnosed. I really think I have that because I do get when I get hyperfixated on something that's really interesting to me, and it's usually around like learning or creativity. Those are the kinds of things that will pull me in like that. Like something like that combines both of those where I'm like learning this new tool and I'm getting to be super creative and like that stuff, man, I forget everything. I'm not tired. I like literally there are times where I could do that and I could stay up for 12 hours, 24 hours. Like I would be able to do it so nonstop. And then it's like you're in a daze. This is probably how you are with your fanfic. Cause then as soon as you like come out of it, once you finally stop, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But like while you're doing it, you don't even notice that you're tired or hungry or whatever the thing is.
Yeah. It's like a slow drip of like dopamine. Like it's just constantly hit. I don't know. Maybe I have ADHD too. I've never been.
I honestly am starting to think everyone does. And I'm not saying that in a flip kind of way. I think it is that sort of that. I think I have a feeling that in the same way we have discovered autism as a spectrum, I think within a few years, it's going to be like, there is no such thing as whatever the opposite of neurodivergent is. Neurotypical. There is no neurotypical. We're all on this like neuro spectrum and our brains like, and that is not to take away from people who need medication or anything else, because I think those things are super important. And I think this idea that there is some normal of anything is where like that binary of it's like, it's either normal or it's not is the problem, because just like we, understand with gender and sexuality and almost everything else, there is no, like, even when we talk about race, like Black can look so different. White can look so different, like everything, because it's all a construct. It's all just nonsense in a way. So I think we're all neurodivergent.
Divergent. Yeah. I think also the culture that we live in, like, with like the attention economy and like all these like different things, like that has an effect on our brains, like that has an effect on our bodies. So yes, like neurodivergent people have been around forever, but I think we're also like creating a type of neurodivergence that maybe is exacerbated by like all these things that we have access to right now.
Yeah, I mean, humans evolve and technology is a part of that evolution. We evolve to adapt to the different technologies that are out there. There's a really great book called Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. It's one of the only books I've ever seen that talks about like attention economy and these issues and, social media and technology and all that in a way that is through this lens of like sociology and anthropology and like understanding the totality of human existence, instead of it being through this like either how to be more productive or how to just avoid these things or whatever. It's more like just explaining how we have evolved, how our focus has evolved, how our attention has evolved, and how these things that are at play are changing how we show up. It's really, really good and thought-provoking. Sometimes we ought to read it for book club because it's so good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I highly recommend it for people who are interested in those things through a very different lens, because just most of what I see out there that's talking about like, digital minimalism, Cal Newport and atomic habits and like all these things that are out there, they still feel very focused on like productivity. It's like either how do we reduce the noise so that we can get more done, or how do we like use the technology in more efficient ways? Like all of this is not remotely that. And so I think it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be a good book for book club in the coaches circle sometime. Yeah.
I agree.
Whew.
What else is going on? We saw a few minutes. Anything else we want to talk about?
My dog still has pneumonia, so
and still isn't dead.
Yeah.
This dog is a miracle. Like they should study her for science. Yeah.
The dog who lived. Well, I mean, she's going to be on antibiotics for at least 3 more weeks. So, because apparently, we took her to the vet last week as a follow-up. They did an x-ray, which is like $600. And she still has like pneumonia in her lungs. Not a lot, but still a little bit. And she's supposed to stay on the antibiotics for 2 weeks after the x-rays come back clear. So she's going to be on antibiotics for at least another 3 weeks. Well, at this point, about 2.5 weeks. And giving her the meds is like, she hates it because it's in a syringe and you have to like force it into her mouth. And then she gets up. Yeah, she gets.
And I love her. No offense, but she does have a bit of a crypt keepery look at this point.
No, she does.
She does. So I can only imagine that face, like when she's like, "Get away from me!" Like it's got to be scary.
Yeah. She's like whining and like she'll start barking if she gets like really angry, and just like pacing. Sometimes she'll angry pee. Yeah. She's a little bit of a bitch.
She seems like a lot of a bitch, but still, you gotta love her. Like what tenacity, what resilience. I think that she's like our role model in a way.
Yeah.
I love her. She's just like, oh, you think I'm done? Fuck you. No, I'll keep on going then. Right.
Yeah.
She's got that kind of spirit and I love it. It reminds me of my father-in-law to a degree because he also was dealing with pneumonia after he's battling lung cancer, has gone through chemo and radiation, finished all of his treatments and then got pneumonia. He's been in the hospital. But similarly, every time we start to think like, oh God, I hope is like this. He's 80. He's almost 83. Then they'll be like, actually, he's looking really good now. He's turning around. And like, I think he's going to be heading home soon and getting home healthcare while he finishes recovering because the pneumonia, I think pneumonia had spread to his blood. Like, this stuff where we're like, oh God, like every time. And then he pulls through, man. The man's a fighter, So there are just some people that are built that way, I think. But also has some of that same spirit of like, fuck this and I hate this and that, like
crotchety old.
Yeah. But sometimes I think that's part of what keeps you alive longer. Some of the people who've lived a lot. It's so interesting when they interview people who've lived like the octogenarians and stuff who've lived 80 to 100 years. And some of them are like, oh yeah, it was because of my healthy lifestyle and I walk and whatever. But so often what you hear is these people are like, well, I drink every day and I it's because I play poker or like these things that you think.
It's because I never got married.
Right. Because I have
my whole life.
Well, that part, there's science behind never getting married, that whole thing. But, or like I ate sugar. I had my ice cream every day. Like some of the things that they'll say, you're like, wait a minute, that's everything they say not to do. And somehow you're living to be 106. I think it's genetics, y'all.
Yeah. And that fighting spirit,
And that too. Yeah. Like your dog, just like that. I'm not going.
Yeah. She's like, there's too much delicious food to be had. Why would I go? I go?
Basically how I feel about life. As long as croissants exist on this world, it's like I'm going to be fighting to stay here and eat them.
A croissant.
I love croissants. I love baked goods. And if I were to, I don't want to tempt fate here, but if I were to suddenly be told I had like celiac or something, I don't know that I could go on.
Yeah.
Like you could tell me that I couldn't eat meat ever again. I'd be like, all right, we'll make it work. Maybe dairy, although I do love ice cream, but gluten? No. I just don't, for me personally, I don't know that I can see a world where I eat so much bread. I love all baked goods. Oh,
yeah, me too.
Nothing I love more than a bakery. Like walking into that smell.
It's nirvana. It's nirvana.
My kid got that gene from me. We went to get donuts the other day and he walked in. He's like, before we even got in, he's like, oh, it smells so good, Mom. He's like, that. And he's like, that's the smell of heaven. I was like, oh boy. Yeah, that's not right.
That's funny. The first time, God, that sounds so fucking pretentious. We went to Paris on our honeymoon.
I was wondering what was going to sound pretentious. A little bit.
And I was like, you know what I want to do? I just want to buy a baguette and just walk down the street and just eat it.
On the Champs-Élysées.
Have the baguette. And so we did that. And the first time I bit into it, I was like, well, I see why the French Revolution happened because this bread is so good.
Yeah.
It's so yummy.
We have a James Beard winning French patisserie in town that also does baked goods and everything. And I mean, the amount of money is obscene. Talk about pretentious. Like, it's obscene. And I like just crave it all the time and think about it all the time. And I go maybe once a month. If I could, I would go daily. They make the most amazing baked goods. And they also have these wonderful patisserie, which you can't get anywhere else. And that all sounds very pretentious. But you know what? If you've never tried French patisserie, if you've never been to a true French bakery, if you've never had like a real croissant, not the bullshit bready stuff you get at the grocery store, but like
the real flaky one where it just like
crispy outside.
Yes, it just falls apart.
Watery.
Yeah.
Then you
put
haven't
it in a brown paper bag. The bag should be greasy afterwards.
For sure.
Of the butter. Yeah.
For sure. Like, cause you're not using enough butter if you're not doing that. And that's not it's not the French way.
Yeah.
And I would be pretentious, but at least once, I think everyone in their life at least once should have a phenomenal, true croissant.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. There's nothing like a really legit croissant. Cause I feel like a lot of, we're getting so...
We're
all over the place.
Let's turn into food porn.
Yeah. But I feel like a lot of the croissants that you get out there are bready. Like croissants are supposed to be light.
They should not be bready.
Yeah, because of the layers and things like that. It's supposed to be super light.
The lamination. If you don't watch the Great British Bake Off, you can learn more about croissant. It's lamination. It's folding that dough with the butter. They put layers, like it's supposed to be layers of not just like, a little spread of butter. If you watch them make it, it's layers of
layers of butter. Yeah.
Frozen butter. And then, and it's so not good for your heart. Yeah. And then still the French people live forever.
Yeah, because they walk a lot.
Well, that is the thing. They walk to get that croissant instead of like, I have to drive to get that croissant. They live and walk. I don't have that. Yeah. So there is a part.
A little bit of food science here for you and for people who are listening. So like the lamination in the croissants, it's the same concept with like a really good pie dough. When you get like the little, like the chunks of butter in there, what happens is when you bake it, there's water in that butter that evaporates, that creates air pockets. And so that's why when you get like a really good croissant or a biscuit or pie dough, like it's, even though it's a bread, it feels, and it has a lot of butter, it feels really light on your palate because of those air pockets.
And it's supposed, and you have to use frozen butter. If you've ever tried to make biscuits and you're not using frozen butter, they turn out flat.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with a lot of what you see is people aren't doing it because it takes more work. It's more effort. It takes more time. And that's why it's so good. It's made with love.
Yeah. Because frozen butter retains the water. So if the butter's melted or soft, it's like the water's already gone from it.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And it just flattens everything. You don't get those beautiful air pockets that make it so delicious.
Yeah.
Okay, this was a weird episode, but also good.
Yeah.
Like heavy, helpful.
And then light with the croissants.
Yeah. What more could you want, people? Like, we're delivering here. You're not paying a penny for this magic. I feel really good about that.
Thanks for listening in on my therapy journey so far.
Yeah, thanks for all of this. And thanks for continuing to tell us about your fanfic. Go to BeckyMollenkamp.com/game if you want to play my little game that AI helped me build. If you have questions about how it happened, let me know. But I would encourage people to explore with AI. Like, it's once you get past the get off my lawn part, which that still pops its head up for me. But it is really interesting to see the fun things that you can start to do, like that I would have never been able to do before in my life.
Yeah.
Like, to express myself in all these new ways. Yeah. It's really exciting. So anyway, when are you going to write some fanfic, by the way? I want you to do that.
I used to write a lot when I was younger, and I have been thinking about it, and I'm just like, I never read the Harry Potter books. So I'm like, I don't feel like I know the characters.
I feel like you know enough from the fanfic.
Maybe, but there's a TikTok.
Did you write fanfic about fanfic?
Maybe.
If anyone could, it would be you.
Yeah. No, there's a TikTok creator who writes, but also will create plot bunnies. And in the world of like fanfic, plot bunnies are ideas that haven't been written. And so sometimes she'll say, oh, this plot bunny is up for adoption. So that means anybody can write it. And I saw one the other day that I was like, ooh, I feel like I want to write that.
See, I think we should almost turn this podcast into an accountability session with each other where we pick a project to do. Like, I did my 4 hours today because of this. And I'm like, that kind of excites me to think about, like, if I knew I was having this weekly checkpoints on a bigger project. So anyway, something to think about. Okay, you have to go host a call for our coaches circle. Don't forget to join if you're a coach and interested in being part of all of this kind of wacky fun all the time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Taina. Love you.
Love you too.
Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Will you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen?
I know people say that all the time, and if you're like me, often you just go on to the next podcast, but truly, taking that moment to do that will really help us reach a wider audience.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.